Hello, and welcome to the News from the Real World Video Podcast, where we dig a little deeper into news and current events from the entertainment industry and beyond, as found on the PTM Green page. Today, I am joined by Jacob Rothermel, third-year technical director graduate.
Hi.
Lauren Mills, third-year scene designer.
Hello.
Kat Meyendorf, second-year PMSM.
Hi.
And I am Matthew Roner, third-year graduate technical designer. Okay. Lauren, why don't you start us off? Tell us about Mean Girls, maybe going to Broadway.
Okay, so this is an article from Playbill.com. This is one of our student picks. And the article is titled, Will Tina Fey's Mean Girls Sing on Broadway? Tina Fey is currently in the development stages for an adaptation of Mean Girls the movie with her husband, Jeff Richmond, who is a composer. And there have been kind of little hints that this is kind of coming down the pipeline. What do you guys think? The reviews, or the comments on this article were pretty harsh.
Yeah,
but
they were really...
They were pretty rough.
They were really emotionally invested in the opposition of this.
What do you guys think about this? Do you want to see Mean Girls on Broadway?
Give it a shot. Who the hell cares?
If Bring It On can succeed as a musical, I think Mean Girls could win a Tony. Really.
Well, I mean, almost
No.
anything can theoretically be turned. I mean, you can make a musical out of Romeo and Juliet and the Bible. So, Jesus Christ, super
Together? Is that
at the same time?
great? Okay.
I mean, why not? I mean, there is something to be said for the Mean Girls, the film, and the story there, and I think it does resonate with a lot of, especially as the nerd culture and the introvert culture kind of becomes a little more extroverted, or at least in the spotlight. So give it a shot. It might suck, and if it sucks, then it'll crash and burn. But
And if it's brilliant, then
and if it's brilliant, then it's
Brilliant, and that's great.
I mean, here's my problem with this, with the naysayers on this, is that a lot of the comments were of the nature that this is not art, this is not theater, that this is not worthy of being on the stage. And
right, because Spider-Man is worthy of being on the
But I
stage.
really have an issue with that. Why is some big flashy musical, escapist as it might be, not as worthy as another piece of art? It's got its place, and
I do think that there is, the past decade, maybe more than the past 10 years, there has been an influx of really crappy movies being made into stage musicals. I mean, Legally Blonde, the goddamn musical.
But it's not doing badly on tour.
No,
So,
it's actually not. I'm eating
my.
my own words, even as I say them with that. But like, when I first heard that was being made into a full scale musical, like I echoed the exact same sentiments that commenters on this article are saying, that it's not. I don't want to say if it's not worthy, but it just seems like a dumb idea to me to put something like Legally Blonde as a musical on stage. But it's been doing very well, so I was wrong about that one. So I'm not going to say that Mean Girls doesn't deserve to be on stage. It could easily become a really good show.
And if it's fun, if it's a nice evening out, if it's a good show, I mean, what does it matter, right? So that's why I sort of disagree a little bit with the comments that it doesn't matter, especially when we're considering, American-style Broadway commercial theater, right? So they want to tell a story, they want people to have fun, and they want people to tell their friends. And I think considering the surprising popularity of the film, it sort of snuck up on everybody how clever and really good it was. I think there's a lot of potential for the musical as well.
I mean, I also think it's an opportunity for people that wouldn't go see a Broadway show to be interested in going to see a Broadway show, and maybe then they'll go to see something else if they like it. So it's a way. Getting something this popular, making it into a musical, is a way to get more people invested and involved in theater.
I also think that with Tina Fey behind this, that is genius. I mean, if she is behind it and, has creative control over it, I think there's nothing very little that can go wrong.
Tina Fey's my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
How does your wife feel about that?
She's on board with this.
Great.
I mean,
But even to jump on the Tina Fey thing, I mean, so we talk a lot in here about diversity and sort of things that we'd like to see. I mean, sort of Tina Fey and Amy Poehler were sort of like the comedy queens, and this was sort of their movie. And to see Tina Fey, she conquered, the sitcom Saturday Night Live style. 30 Rock, she did that. Now she's thinking to consider Tina Fey going to Broadway and becoming a playwright is just great. It's another wonderful step for her as an artist. I think for female artists in general. I think it would be really great to see this really great up on its feet.
I can't wait to see this on Broadway.
So From Tina Fey to another great. PBS is relooking at Shakespeare. Jake, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this was a quick little blurb on the LA Times website called A Thrilling Look at Shakespeare Uncovered by Robert Lloyd. It's a multi-parts documentary on Shakespeare and film versions of Shakespeare and stage versions performed by well-known actors and performers. And it just sort of goes, it's mostly a series of interviews and talking dialogues with actors who have played some of the biggest characters in Shakespeare, from David Tennant in Hamlet to Jeremy Irons, and I mean, the whole cavalcade of actors. And just from my own point of view, I think this is a fantastic thing to get out there. I love Shakespeare. I'm a big Shakespeare nerd. So to hear really, really good actors talk about really, really good plays and really, really good productions of those plays is insightful to me, and it's just the kind of thing that I eat up, and I think a lot of people do.
I don't love Shakespeare. I'm going to put it out there right now. I don't dislike him. I don't love him. But I think that this is incredible. It's amazing to, I think, have the perspective of the performer on these shows, and I think that we're understanding how they're told on stage from a different perspective, which is something that I really appreciate about this. I also think that there's something incredible about seeing Derek Jacobi talk about Shakespeare. I mean, that makes my heart sing as much as I don't love Shakespeare. That's incredible to me. So I'm really excited about this.
Well, that's the thing that I haven't really watched it. I don't know when it's on. I'm in grad school. Who has the time? But again, to pregnant pause to listen to people who really know that the craft of performing Shakespeare talk intelligently and talk interestingly about doing that really informs my own, when I watch those things.
I mean, and the exciting thing about it is that at least when you read Shakespeare in high school or in college or something, most of the time most people don't really think that this was meant to be on stage. It's not just like, I'm reading this old-timey language that doesn't really make sense to me. And like to have that translated and kind of understand that it's meant to be performed and not just read on a page
Right.
is great to have people see and be able to talk about.
And it's great to see, like you mentioned, the all-star cast are talking about this. One thing, you mentioned you don't like Shakespeare. I'm sure there's a lot of us who don't like Shakespeare out there. A lot of us find it difficult, hard to get into. But I think this can build a lot of respect by showing people who have a lot of respect for it, right? So people are going to see Ethan Hawke, David Tennant, talk about the Bard with such, respect and his craft. Like, it's going to make them appreciate it more. Like, I remember watching Playing Shakespeare, which was a video that the Royal Shakespeare Company put out in the 80s. And it was, them rehearsing. And so you saw, like, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and all those guys. And it was like you saw how important it was to these people, and you really realized that you were in the presence of something great. So I think that is going to be very, very wonderful for PBS to do this. And also, it's PBS. So, like, they know how to tell a good story. They know when they're in the presence of a master. So I think they're going to do really, really great things with this.
Anyone talking passionately about something it can inspire other people to get involved in it.
Yeah.
Or at least to open their minds to a different perspective of that thing. So to hear Derek Jacobi talk about Shakespeare and talk passionately about performing and watching Shakespeare, hopefully will inspire someone to give it another chance.
I think
Maybe you.
I will.
Maybe you.
Great. So it's working. So thank you, PBS. Another way
Support
of
public project.
potentially, you get a tote bag. Another way of reaching the masses, maybe through unmanned drones.
Oh, sure.
Kat?
Great. So this next article is from thehill.com. It is entitled Hollywood Wants Drones for Filmmaking, and it's by Brendan Sasso. So in this article, he talks about how the Motion Picture Association of America has asked the Federal Aviation Association if they would allow movie filmmakers to purchase and be able to fly unmanned aircraft to get better camera angles, and kind of, they claim it would be safer because they're unmanned, so they don't need to send people up in helicopters to try to get like these long aerial shots for the movies they're making. And so the article also goes on to say that this FAA is also currently drafting rules to allow general private groups to apply to purchase and fly drones. So the comments on this article...
What could possibly go wrong?
So I was incredibly surprised by all of your comments on this article because most of you thought this was an awesome idea. And which I agree, it may have its merits. Sure, you can get maybe better camera angles, you can get cooler aerial shots. At the same time, you're releasing as understandably they will be stripped down, like, of all of their military technology and, secret...
Most of their military
technology. But you're releasing into the public these things that were built and constructed to find and destroy people. And so, I don't think that this is necessarily the best thing to do because there are some people who are very technologically savvy that maybe would find these and can alter them or could spy on people, or there's a whole host of things that could go wrong with this. And so I'm not quite sure that it's worth it.
It's a huge issue when we lose a drone in Afghanistan. Why would we make it available to, everyone? I think that's terrible.
I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, so there is sort of like a drone movement, so there's
an anti-drone movement
right
now.
And so I'm on both sides of the fence because we see a lot of drones showing up in the maker and do-it-yourself and the hobbyist market where people make these cool little helicopters or these cool planes and they fly it around, and there's probably a lot of that happening on campus with robotics, so there's this neat technology and it can help out with a lot of different things. And so I think it's good to see that Hollywood is using military technology, murderous technology, let's be frank here, for different purposes. So in one sense, that's good. In the second sense, is it reaffirming drone technology and drone warfare by doing more of the same and applying it to entertainment? I don't know.
To play devil's advocate a little bit about this, why not? Who cares? People are going to be 3D printing these drones in a couple of years anyways, so what's the big deal about... on one hand, I feel that if really the Hollywood is after better camera angles or better methods for getting aerial shots, then the idea of a remote-controlled camera that flies through the air on some sort of helipad thing is not a new concept. The technology exists, whether it's from the military and it's a military-grade drone or not. So just do that.
Is there no...
So, I feel like there's some sort of, I don't want to say ulterior motive here, but, if it seems like that can't be the only reason. That they don't want to hire a helicopter pilot and a helicopter for a week's worth of filming. They want to buy a drone and have some dude on the ground control it. Well, we can do that now, so just hire someone to do that now. Why does it need to be a military-grade device to do?
Are there concerns about privacy here? That was something else that I was thinking about, is that,
probably.
I think that's the major implication here.
But again, like Matt said, there are people who do this with, the makers and do-it-yourselfers are doing this kind of stuff now. We can do this stuff with radio-controlled helicopters.
They're not using it for commercial purposes, though. An aerial shot could end up in a film very easily with these drones. In a way
but they can do that now. What's the difference between a drone flying overhead attached to a camera or a helicopter or a glider?
It's more cost-effective to not have to hire a helicopter and a person. It's also safer, they claim, because people don't take as many risks to get the cooler shot. And
safer again. I just don't buy that. I think that there's.
No, I agree.
I just think that there's hire a good helicopter pilot. Done. Get the film made. I don't understand why this needs to be a thing.
This technology isn't going to make any groundbreaking strides forward in the cinema, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I didn't really play devil's advocate at all for that.
Except that camera people may lose all of their jobs.
Yeah, the union's going to be up in arms about this. And the helicopter union.
Yes.
I don't know. I got nothing.
A bit silly, but serious considerations.
Yeah.
Moving on to some more somber news. Rolling Stone writes, hundreds die in Brazilian nightclub fire. And this was Rolling Stone recapping an AP report about a nightclub fire that happened recently in Brazil. where I believe it was something like 220 people,
Yeah.
232 people
232 people.
died in a nightclub fire when pyrotechnics went off as part of the show and set something on fire, and people had trouble escaping, and it was just, I mean, a terrible, terrible tragedy. And these things happen quite frequently in the entertainment world, and it's really sad to hear things talk about this. But one thing that I was reminded of is sort of the importance of safety that we put on as managers, dealing with just not only our own employees, the artists and technicians in our theaters and our companies, but also the audiences, the people who we invite to our spaces. So tragically, here's an example of, here's what happens when you don't do your due diligence and you don't take into considerations things like egress or like exit lights, things that we kind of roll our eyes at. I mean, they're big issues.
Well, yeah. So there's multiple issues of safety going on in this instance. One is that the pyrotechnics involved in this show. I can't actually remember from the articles that I've been reading about this if there was a pyrotechnics engineer involved with the workings of this during the show, but certainly someone didn't do the right math because the pyrotechnics went so far up that they lit the ceiling on fire. So that's one. Two is the ceiling could catch on fire. So there was something, that wasn't quite up to code in this club for some sound insulation or sound bouncing material that was very flammable. And then three was the egress that Matt just mentioned, that they locked the doors, security locked the doors from the outside and prevented people from exiting the club once the fire had been known, which, is and then four even is that those exits could not be overridden from the inside in any kind of, in the case of an emergency, like, push bars or something that can allow people to escape regardless. So it's almost like this perfect storm that has multiple people either not doing their jobs or doing their jobs very, very poorly that resulted in this massive list of casualties at what should be a good time.
Yeah, it was a student-organized event. It was university-sponsored, so this was a night out for the students. Come see this concert. It was, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, 230 people, that is not a small number. I can't quite wrap my head around that. I just think so tragic, and could have been so easily prevented.
And this isn't the first time that these kinds of, the pyrotechnics have gone wrong in clubs. That have resulted in not only fires but in deaths. Now that being said, there's plenty of concerts and nightclubs that do use pyrotechnics and have used them safely that have not resulted in anyone dying or anything being burnt to the ground. So a little we only hear about the fuck ups. And F-bomb number one.
And I think is sort of one of the unfortunate truths about our industry is that things get fixed
after something's gone wrong.
After they break.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
we only hear about the things that don't get fixed.
Sure, and then
when
that
they
gets
result
the
in this
attention.
kind of thing. The fire marshal that walks in and says you can't use that pyrotechnic height blaster on in this room because of the ceiling, so you gotta dial it down. Don't use it. That doesn't make the news. Like, we don't hear about that stuff. So it's slanted in a lot of ways.
But this is a reminder of why that's so important.
Yes.
That, so many people kind of scoff at the safety of the egress, that's kind of silly, and it's
What could
only a
possibly go
couple
wrong?
inches, it's
Right.
fine. And really, there's a reason for all of those things, and just important to keep
no
in
one
mind.
who
Yeah.
tours through New Hampshire now can use pyrotechnics at all,
Right.
period. Blanket law. Just don't do it because of what happened a couple of years ago. So that's maybe a bit extreme, but these things keep happening. So, again, because there's no, there's not one group necessarily responsible for pyrotechnics in concert venues globally, and I don't even know how you would logistically do that, but it keeps happening because there are people who don't know what they're doing, or don't know they're doing enough, doing these things.
Yeah, really, just what else can you say about it? Not everything we talk about from week to week is so sad. Some things are actually silly and quite topical. So one of the things that showed up on the Green Page blog this week was someone's infographic resume, which was pretty clever and I thought really, really eloquently done. Why don't you tell us about it?
So an article by Casey Chan is called "This Clever Resume that looks just like an Amazon page is so good I would buy it." The article is 2 paragraphs long, and by a very, very impressed Casey Chan. So this guy, an infographic resume is for those of you who don't know, is a visual representation of your resume, rather than just a list of your education and the places you've worked and your skill sets. It's usually a visual representation of those things. So it can be a picture, it can be a series of pictures, it can be a subway map, it can be all sorts of things. The limits are non-existent for what these things could conceivably be to sell yourself. So this gentleman did an infographic resume based on his Amazon page. So it had a quantity list, one left, and you click on your cart to find the price, and listed his skill sets and stuff like you would find for a product on Amazon. And it's an interesting twist on an infographic resume.
Pretty clever, I think.
And that's pretty much where we leave it off.
I disagree with clever, sure. It's a clever idea, but looking at it, it's incredibly difficult to pick out the relevant information. And so it might be clever, but I don't think it's very useful as a resume.
I also think that there's a fine line between, being out there and pushing it and having a resume.
Right.
Just give me your resume and let me look at your work and don't bother me.
Well, yeah, that's true. But then, I mean, how many resumes have you had to sort through in any, I mean, to just call you out, but I mean, maybe in my career, I've gone through a dozen resumes for 1 or 2 positions that I've been hiring, maybe, up to 20 or 25. But people who look at nothing but resumes for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, who go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes for positions, especially in corporate America, I think this kind of thing can sometimes really break up the monotony of one more list of things. There is a danger, I think, about it being such a good copy of an Amazon page that people don't realize it's a resume. I've seen a couple that have done that with Google search pages and Facebook pages and Twitter feeds and that kind of thing, where there's such a good copy that
you just kind of
that people don't really realize that it's a resume and not just how did I get the screenshot? Why did someone send me a screenshot of their freaking Twitter page? I'm not going to hire them. Delete.
Right.
So there's a fine line you have to walk with this kind of stuff.
And what I like about it is that it, you kind of spoke to it earlier, that it separates it from the pile of resumes. So if you see this come across your desk, you're going to respond to it stronger than you would a paper resume. You might think this is great, or you might say this is rubbish. Let's throw it out. What was interesting about this is that I think the great infographic resumes, tie together what you're doing with the form in which you display it. So I think he was a web developer or some sort of marketing, some sort of web marketing, right?
Yeah.
So really clever. This guy knows how to grab attention. So I think that is sort of an indirect. It's a way of his resume to speak indirectly to his strengths. I thought it was a great idea. I personally have a very hard time visualizing myself creatively on paper, so I thought it was good. Nice little link.
I'm not sure I would buy them, but
I didn't realize you could buy people on Amazon.
well, I mean, Amazon sells just about everything. So
There you go.
Someone
Matter of
who
time.
might need some help with their resumes are some former employees.
Oh yeah,
I had to do it.
so
It went
true.
so nicely.
It's so true.
Cirque du Soleil has had a hard year. Lauren, why don't you tell us about it?
So this is an editor pick from the dailypress.com. Cirque du Soleil is now a victim of the economic crisis. They are cutting 400 jobs from all segments of their company. They employ about 5,000 employees. 1,300 of those are artists. And 2012 is the first year in their history that they have not been profitable. In 2011, just to put this in perspective for you, they had a turnover of $1 billion. And I believe last year was about 500 million, something like that. So this is a company that turns a huge profit. And for them to have been going for as long as they have and not make a profit is kind of stunning. Is this concerning to us? What do you guys think?
I don't think it's concerning to us as I mean, they're still doing pretty well. I think that part of what these articles talked about was that they just stretched themselves too thin. And they tried to do too much, and some of their attempts were not very successful. And so that was why last year they didn't do so well. And so I think that they've been, in the last 30 years since they've been founded, they've been growing and growing and growing and growing. And I think that for the company as it is now, they reached a point where they shouldn't grow anymore, and maybe they should stay how they are and establish themselves a little more instead of trying to keep growing. And so I don't think necessarily it's concerning as an entertainment business, because their shows are still doing pretty well, the ones that are kind of have been there for a while. So I think it's just a case of them stretching themselves too thin.
But I think that's a little concerning to us looking, after we graduate here, looking for jobs that, I would make some money, and Cirque du Soleil has been making a lot of money for 24 years. And here we see an example that, like the dream job might not be available to us, or it might not be as good as we think.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly why this is happening, but maybe it's because of the different things Cirque has been trying. So they've been doing a lot of shows based on celebrities and personalities, like the Elvis show, the Beatles show, the Chris Angel show, Michael Jackson show. Right, so Cirque is trying things to expand their market, and it's looking like it's not working. So maybe those jobs that we're looking for might not be as abundant afterwards. And so I think that's a little concerning to us.
Well, there's a couple of things that they're also doing to help this. They're trying to scale back production costs, and they're trying to limit that to about 25 to 30 million per show, which is still gigantic.
Oh, good, yeah.
And they're trying
Go conservative there, sir. Go.
They're also trying to keep themselves to about 20 shows running at the same time. So I think hopefully...
Which is still a phenomenal amount of shows.
It's still ridiculous. Cirque still runs the world, so...
Cirque and Disney.
I mean... Cirque has obviously taken a hit, but I don't think that they're...
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next few years, what the trend for them will be. If this is a singularity, and not like the robot intelligence singularity, but if this is just an isolated event, or if this is really going to be a trend for Cirque, and if they really need to keep doing this in order to stay in the black.
I mean, I guess one of the other things that I find concerning about this is that I think some of their new shows have been really pushing it, and I'm concerned that if we lose that creativity and that spark for them to keep creating, to me that would be a huge loss to the industry. So I hope that they scale back enough to continue making new work.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance there between being able to push, envelopes, boxes, insert cliche here, because Cirque is one of those companies that has the resources to be able to do that kind of thing, to self-impose those restrictions of only $25 to $30 million a show. Of their 20 shows. I think that's an interesting point, and maybe a valid concern in the future if this does continue to be a trend for them, that we might see a lot of the innovation from Cirque go away, and it might just be churning out the stuff that they know they can sell, which might suck a lot.
Yeah, it might be even worse. But so Cirque's still doing well, still putting out innovative work. So we hope they're doing well.
Keep it up, Cirque.
Yeah, 25 million, great.
Don't let us down.
Another innovative thing that we saw on the webpage this week was this video, motion capture for...
It's a video and a very, very brief write-up on io9.com. It's by Lauren Davis. It's called Motion Test for Mama is Ghostly, or Motion Test for Mama Ghostly Creature is Freaky all by itself. And it's really just a couple of clips of the motion capture that was used for the movie Mama, Girl Raised in the Woods, freaky twist kind of thing. And it's the actor is just sort of doing...
Just walking around.
Yeah, he's just doing weird body things, and I forget I look like a jerk. I forget the condition that the actor has that allows him to one, has made him look so spindly and skinny, but also allows him to do really weird twisting things. But so it was just a video sort of highlighting that kind of stuff, and had a little creepy music behind it, and it was a lot creepier just without any special effects.
I think that was what was so chilling about it, was that this was just a couple shots of a performer in costume walking to see what this monster creature would look like up on the big screen, and it's very chilling just on its own. which was a nice reminder to us, I think, as theater artists, is that sometimes the best way is, KISS, like keep it simple, stupid, right? So like let's find someone who unfortunately has a condition that, they're a little bit twisted and they have a little bit difficulty, but then let's put it in the right situation and it creates some really, really good storytelling. It reminded me of magicians, like they would find twins and use twins in their act so they could have one person here and one person there. Like very simple thing, but very, very powerful. And that's what I really liked about this video.
Yeah, without any special effects. I mean, the actor was wearing a mask, I think partially for the motion capture technology later on in post editing, but there wasn't a whole lot. There was no backgrounds. There was no sound effects necessarily. It was just him contorting himself and
with a couple of harnesses, it looked like for some resistance.
A couple of tricks, yeah.
A couple tricks and harnesses for like flying and that sort of thing. But when it was just him walking down this lane, it was really creepy just on itself. I will also say that if the creep factor is what's keeping you from watching this video, it ends up being hysterical if you watch it with Daft Punk in the background instead. I recommend Harder, Faster, Stronger, Better.
Harder, better, faster.
Whatever.
Stronger.
4 words, adjectives in a sentence.
True.
It becomes quite a dance.
It does. It actually works out very, very well. You heard it here first. Nothing.
The next article we're going to talk about is a book that's been out for quite some time. It's called Human Dimension and Interior Space. This was one of our top 5 student picks. And it's talking about this book that was initially compiled by NASA. And it's illustrated figure drawings, but not artistic figure drawings, but still to scale, to human proportion, about what the human body looks like in different situations. So human body seated, what the relationships are, what the measurements are to that, what their sight lines are looking like, human body standing, what they can reach ergonomically, the spaces that they can fit into. And like I said, it was originally compiled by NASA to sort of design a better ergonomic spaceship that people could still be contained in. A lot of good comments on the blog about this, about how this could be useful to designers, about how we all have, made a mistake of designing something and it comes out too small or too big compared to the human form. So what do you guys think? Would you use this as a technical director, as a manager, as a designer?
Yes, I think that this is something that I personally have to be very conscious of in every decision that I make on a show. And there are resources out there to kind of help with dimensions and that kind of thing, but I think to have it all compiled in one place is fantastic. So I am excited about this, although I don't know that it's so groundbreaking. I think that there are resources that I go to frequently for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think in theater especially, like I can obviously see how this would be useful for, offices or for a lot of other industries, but especially for theater, most of the time designers purposely go outside of the norm in their design. Like they make tall stairs, or they make really little stairs, or there's always, I can see how this is useful because it's something to go off of. And this is what's normal, so if I don't want normal, I don't want an 36-foot high whatever.
Well, not just normal, but I'm a firm believer that you have to know the rules before you can start to bend them or break them. So like when we did Angels in America here last semester, especially up here in the technical office, we spent huge amounts of time going over harnesses and personal comfort and personal bodily requirements for a person to be in a harness and to be flown and supported from pick points on their waist or anywhere on their body for a certain amount of time, and what the maximum amount of time that they possibly could be before damage to their body started, and all these kinds of things. And to have that kind of stuff as a resource maybe isn't necessarily groundbreaking, but it's certainly an important resource to have on hand to be able to know those things and to be able to design appropriately for them, to be able to push those boundaries without causing bodily harm or injuries or those kinds of things.
I mean, I also think that I've seen plenty of designers who don't consider this, and they are trying to go for the real thing, and then they screw it up because they have this idea of it in their head.
Right.
And I think that our perception of what something is and the reality of what something is so skewed that having a hard rule for it is really important.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it could be a great tool, and it's not groundbreaking. Like it was first published in 1979, so it's nothing new certainly, but
But the human figure has been studied for centuries.
Right.
I mean, all the way back to Leonardo's
I'm going to
famous.
go with millennia on this one, but yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, enough centuries add up to millennia. But I mean, it's again, this is not something that we've been as a culture or as a race have been just now thinking about.
Sure.
But to collate it all into one place in a way that is still usable and relevant, I think is important.
Yeah. Sometimes overlooked. Good to know that's there. Something that's also overlooked, or not overlooked, is the show Glee.
Okay, so let me explain.
Okay.
So this is I guess this is an editor pick from geekosystem.com. The article is entitled "Glee Thinks They Did Joko a Favor by Ripping Off His Baby Got Back Cover." Did you ever think you would hear Lauren Mills say that? So, Glee stole. I'm going to be unbiased for 1 second here.
Do it.
Jonathan Coulton did a cover of Sir Mix-a-Lot's "Baby Got Back," and Glee allegedly borrowed his arrangement for the song. Before I go on my nerd rant here, what do you guys think? Did Glee do something wrong here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I find even worse is that they're justifying it by saying, "Well, look, we've given him this exposure," but you haven't given him exposure because you're not giving him credit for the arrangement that you used. So sure, you're giving him exposure because now there's this, kind of lawsuit against you, but originally, just the joy of Glee using your song is not credit. It's yeah.
This is illegal. I looked this up. Under copyright law, what Jonathan Coulton has done here is he has created a derivative work. He had a license to arrange and sell that song on iTunes from the original writers. And under copyright law, derivative work covers additions, changes, or other new material appearing for the first time in that work. So by law, Glee has violated copyright law.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
It does.
Yep.
Glee and I don't get along.
I mean,
So I'm already biased against them for this. But
Regardless of what your feelings are about the show, you either love it or you hate it, or you don't even know it exists.
yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Listen to the two, so the website put the two right next to each other, and
They're identical.
Close your eyes, you
They're
you
identical.
can't know the difference. So it's really, how do you think Glee could get away with it? Really,
it's
come on.
pretty despicable for them to steal it. They stole it from this guy and won't even acknowledge that he did the
Right.
arrangement. They stole his work, period.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it was a publicity stunt. Glee is sort of on its way down, from what I
I
understand.
would like to see him sue Glee and take all of their money and then do something happy with it. I don't know.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping. All right. Another sort of musical scandal, that gained attention, regardless of why or should have been, was a Beyoncé, performance at the opening, the inauguration, President Obama's second term. Kat, why don't you tell us about what happened?
So this article is from the Guardian website. It is entitled, "From Beyoncé to Horsemeat to Lance Armstrong, we have to care about this contempt for the public." And it is by Gary Young. So this article, those three things that were mentioned in the title, Beyoncé, Horsemeat, and Lance Armstrong, this article goes on to say that these are all related because they all are instances of kind of this new culture and this new society that we've developed where lying is accepted and is okay. So if you guys don't know, obviously there's the Beyoncé lip syncing scandal at the inauguration. The horsemeat reference is in reference to this meat in Ireland. Studies found that something like 60% of the meat is actually horse meat instead of instead of the beef that it's claiming to be. And the Lance Armstrong scandal, of course, is after winning 7 Tour de France races, we found out that he was doping the entire time. So it is a long article. What I found very odd is that I think this is kind of a good point. Sure, there's lots of lying. Okay, well, here's my caveat.
All right, please. I'm dying here.
The lying thing, I understand. Sure, we have a truthfulness problem in our society right now with, retouching photographs, sports athletes lying about doping, this horse meat thing, which is Okay. But this article, for about 3/4 of it, talks about Beyonce lip syncing at this thing as if this is the epitome of this lying culture that, God forbid, she should lip sync to her own voice that she recorded a couple days earlier. And so, I mean, my issue with this is, first of all, I don't equate those three things at all. I think the Lance Armstrong thing is on a whole different level, because that's, it's legality stuff and, confidence, it's all this
Well,
other...
I think that was part of the author's intention, was to try to find three things that are still somehow related to his thesis statement of we're being lied to and we're taking it lying down, that have, on the surface, nothing to do with each other, or at least are so far apart in subject matter that they, on the surface couldn't possibly have anything to do with each other.
Right. But we're not taking it lying.
Well, I think this article especially is a good example to me of a really good thesis statement, a really good point that is horribly done in execution. Like, why isn't the focus more on the fact that a company in Europe is selling hamburgers that are 60% something else,
right,
that they're claiming to be? Why is 65% of this article about Beyonce lip syncing at the inauguration when it was 10 degrees outside?
Right.
And
I agree.
I understand that there's...
I don't understand why. I just think this article was very, very poorly written, and because of that, I just can't get behind
The point.
that we should pick up our pitchforks and torches about being lied to. I mean, we're lied to all the time. In other news, the sky is still blue, grass is still green, and Russell Crowe does not sing Javert very well. I don't understand why this is all of a sudden something we should be up in arms about. Like, we've been lied to for ever.
I have an issue with this, and I think again that there's much bigger problems going on in the world. This is not something that we need to.
Right.
Okay, there's that. I still think this is extremely concerning, though. I understand that there's, Beyonce had her reasons for doing that, but let's talk about Lance Armstrong for a second. That level of deception, I think, is absolutely unacceptable, and I agree with the author. I think it displays a complete lack of respect for the public, for his fans, for anyone that cares about the event. And I think that, these words do lose their meaning after a while. If we're talking about live performance, but all of a sudden it's voiced over, then what does that mean anymore?
But so putting aside the Lance Armstrong thing, which I think is terrible and wrong and despicable, the lip syncing and the live performance aspect of it, how is that different than us using a gunshot sound cue rather than shooting a real gun on stage?
We accept that in the theater there are certain things.
Well, and then this is where you get into the gray area, and the article and how it was written aside, I think the crux, and there were a number of comments about this, especially that theater is based in a deception. Yeah. The only difference potentially is that for the most part, we, the practitioners and the audience, accept this deception as part of the entertainment that we're doing and that we're taking part in. So it's okay because we all sort of know it's not a real gun and that person really isn't being shot or committing suicide on stage because it's just a play.
Right, the audience is in on the act.
Right.
They know what they're going to do, and the public oftentimes is not. So the public thought they were watching, just a legendary, athletic career. The public thought they were eating a delicious sandwich. And when they find out that deception, then that's when things start to get a little more difficult. What was troublesome for me about this is, why do we care? Right? Like, why do we talk about a culture of lies when it's Beyonce lip syncing? I mean, to be a little bit political, I mean, so on that same day, Barack Obama said, a decade of war is ending. He got cheers from the crowd. Like, that day, there were drone strikes in Yemen. It's like we're getting mixed messages, more serious mixed messages all the time. So why do we care about horse meat and hamburger?
I think we should care about horse meat and hamburgers more than we should care about Beyonce and whether or not she's actively singing in 5-degree weather or 10-degree weather at any point, much less if it's the inauguration or the Super Bowl or in her back freaking yard. I mean, Lance Armstrong is slightly above Beyonce lip syncing to me.
Only slightly?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
7.
Yes, I mean
Or not anymore.
Yeah, 7 champion. I don't know. I just like. I personally think that I mean, America and maybe even the world as a whole holds athletes maybe too high on a pedestal for their own good. So he wins one on his own, and then feels this pressure to keep exceeding and to keep excelling rather, and to keep winning. And so it turns to these drugs, to performance drugs, to make him better, and it's a vicious circle, and it's this downward spiral. Okay, tragic. Yes, it's also deceptive. Yes, it's also mean-spirited and wrong. But why do we care?
I mean, do you think that there's a danger of this normalizing, though? That it gets to the point where we do have people like Lance Armstrong, cheating, and we see this in professional sports all the time now, especially. Do you think that there's a danger of this becoming the norm? Is that there are cheating and that nothing is real anymore?
I think as long as the facade is still protected, right? So like, absolute great story about Lance Armstrong, overcome so much, but then maybe he really didn't. So like, but it's a good story. It was great for Lance Armstrong. It was great for the sport of cycling. So as long as people, continue to put the facade up in hopes that it'll, bring more revenue or bring more attention or publicity to them, I think it's going to continue to be a problem because people are still going to be exposed. People are still going to get upset about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the time we've got for today. I want to thank you all for joining us. And if you like what you see, give us a comment or mention us on Twitter. You can use the hashtag NFTRW.
Yeah, do it.
From all of us here in Purnell 209, thank you. See you next time.
All right, guys. Get together.
All right, podcast, party on, excellent.